The night shift at Prairie Grove Memorial Hospital usually meant quiet hours punctuated by the occasional emergency. Raven Mitchell had grown accustomed to the rhythm of these solitary hours, finding peace in the soft beeping of monitors and the gentle hum of fluorescent lights. Tonight, however, would shatter that familiar routine forever. Raven was making her usual rounds, checking on the handful of patients in her ward, when a brilliant flash of purple light illuminated the hospital gardens. Through the window, she witnessed what looked like silent lightning, but the air remained perfectly still. No thunder followed. Her first instinct was to dismiss it as fatigue playing tricks on her mind, but then she saw it again, a shimmer of iridescent light among the rose bushes. Protocol dictated that she should call security, but something made her hesitate. Instead, she found herself walking toward the garden door, her heart thundering in her chest. The midnight air was crisp against her skin as she stepped outside, her footsteps crunching softly on the gravel path. "Hello?" she called out softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is someone there?" A soft whimper answered her, unlike any sound she'd ever heard, part wind chime, part violin string. Following the sound, Raven rounded a large hydrangea bush and stopped dead in her tracks. There, curled beneath the flowering branches, was a being that defied everything she knew about anatomy and physics. The creature was tall and willowy, with skin that seemed to shift between deep purple and midnight blue, like the northern lights dancing across an alien sky. But what caught Raven's attention wasn't its otherworldly appearance, it was the obvious signs of distress. The being's body trembled, and patches of its luminescent skin had grown dull and ashen. Drawing on years of nursing experience, Raven pushed aside her shock and focused on what mattered: someone needed help. She crouched down slowly, making her movements deliberate and non-threatening. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said softly, knowing her words might not be understood but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. The alien's eyes opened, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle pattern, revealing irises that swirled with galaxies of silver and gold. A device around its neck sparked weakly, and a voice emerged, broken and static-filled: "Help, energy, depleting." Raven's mind raced. The being before her was clearly in distress, but this wasn't anything covered in her medical training. Still, basic kindness transcended species. She reached out slowly, palm up, just as she would to a frightened child. "My name is Raven. I'm a nurse, someone who helps others when they're sick or hurt. Will you let me help you?" The alien studied her hand for a long moment before extending its own, long fingers that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The touch was electric, not literally, but in the way it sent shivers of recognition through Raven's body. This was a moment of profound connection, of barriers breaking down across the vastness of space. "Nixus," the alien managed through the failing translator. "Crashed. Hunters. Must hide." The word "hunters" sent a chill down Raven's spine. Whatever had brought this being to Earth, it wasn't just an accident. She made a quick decision, one that would alter the course of her life forever. "Can you walk? We need to get you inside before anyone else sees you." With gentle guidance, Raven helped Nixus to her feet. The alien towered over her, nearly 8 feet tall, but moved with a grace that defied her obvious weakness. Together, they made their way to the hospital's service entrance, Raven's mind already racing through possibilities. The old physical therapy room in the basement had been closed for renovations. It would be perfect for hiding an alien visitor. As they moved through the shadowy corridors, Raven couldn't help but wonder about the ripples this night would create. But looking at Nixus's weakened state, she knew in her heart she'd made the right choice. Sometimes the most human thing we can do is help someone who isn't human at all. Little did Raven know, but this act of kindness would soon test everything she believed about humanity, duty, and the true meaning of courage. The basement physical therapy room became a sanctuary in the darkest hours of night. Raven had managed to create a makeshift bed from spare therapy mats, but Nixus's condition continued to worsen. The alien's luminescent skin grew dimmer with each passing hour, like a star slowly fading from view. Energy, Nixus repeated through the damaged translator, the device sputtering with each attempt at communication. Not food like yours. Raven ran her fingers through her dark hair, frustration mounting as she watched her patient deteriorate. Her medical training felt useless in the face of an entirely alien physiology. What kind of energy do you need? Maybe I can help if I understand better. Nixus's 3 eyes flickered, and she reached out to touch the fluorescent light overhead. The bulb dimmed slightly, and for a brief moment, her skin brightened. Light, but stronger. Pure energy. Understanding dawned on Raven like the very sunrise Nixus needed. You're photosynthetic? But not just visible light, you need something more powerful? When Nixus nodded, Raven's mind raced through possibilities. The hospital had a radiation therapy unit upstairs, carefully shielded and locked away. It wasn't meant for this purpose, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Stay here, Raven whispered, squeezing Nixus's hand. I think I know how to help. The radiation therapy room was restricted access, but being head nurse of the night shift had its advantages. Raven's keycard granted her entry, though her hands shook as she powered up the equipment. This was beyond unauthorized, it was the kind of action that could end her career. But looking at the dosimeter readings, she knew the lowest setting might be exactly what Nixus needed. When she returned to the basement, she found Nixus attempting to repair her translator. The alien's long fingers moved with remarkable precision despite her weakened state. I have an idea, Raven said, but we'll need to move. Can you make it up a few flights of stairs? The journey to the radiation therapy room was tense. Every shadow seemed to hide potential discovery, every distant sound threatened exposure. But they made it, and as Raven carefully positioned Nixus behind the safety shields, she prayed she wasn't about to make a terrible mistake. The first controlled burst of radiation lasted only seconds. Nixus's reaction was immediate and remarkable, her skin blazed with renewed luminescence, the dull patches beginning to shimmer once again. The translator sparked to life, its voice clearer than before. Thank you, Nixus said, her 3 eyes gleaming with emotion. Your kindness, it is not common among species who first encounter the unknown. Over the next few hours, through carefully timed exposure sessions, Raven learned more about her extraordinary patient. Nixus's people, the Lumini, traveled the galaxy studying other civilizations. But they were pursued by those who sought to harness their natural energy manipulation abilities for weapons. Her ship had been damaged in an attack, forcing her to crash land on Earth. As dawn approached, Raven helped Nixus back to the basement sanctuary, her mind troubled by what she'd learned. The universe was larger and more dangerous than she'd imagined, and she had unwittingly stepped into a conflict that spanned the stars. The peace of that first night couldn't last forever. 3 days after finding Nixus, Raven noticed the black SUVs parked across from the hospital. Men in dark suits tried to look inconspicuous as they monitored the building's entrances. Their presence sent a clear message: someone knew something was amiss. They're called the Division, Nixus explained one night, her translator now functioning perfectly thanks to the energy treatments. They exist in many worlds, under many names. Always watching the skies, waiting to capture what they don't understand. Raven paced the small basement room, her shoes silent on the old linoleum. How did they find you so quickly? My ship's energy signature, Nixus said, her luminescent skin dimming with concern. Even crashed, it broadcasts a unique frequency. They have devices to detect such things. She paused, her 3 eyes focusing on something distant. The hunters will not be far behind. The word hung heavy in the air between them. Hunters, the very threat Nixus had been fleeing when she crashed. Raven had glimpsed fragments of memory through Nixus's descriptions, massive ships that moved like predatory birds through space, crews of cybernetically enhanced beings devoted to capturing Lumini for their energy manipulation abilities. A soft knock at the door made them both freeze. Raven's heart hammered until she heard a familiar voice. "Raven? Are you in there?" It was Marcus, one of the overnight janitors who had become a friend over years of shared night shifts. Raven opened the door just enough to see his worried face. "What's wrong?" Men in suits were asking questions at the front desk, Marcus whispered. About strange lights in the garden, power fluctuations in the radiation therapy unit. They showed government badges, but something felt off. He hesitated. "They're planning to search the building tomorrow." The news hit Raven like a physical blow. They had run out of time. She thanked Marcus and closed the door, turning to face Nixus with determination. "We need to move you tonight. But first, you have to tell me exactly where your ship crashed. If they can track it, maybe we can use that to our advantage." Nixus's description led them to a small wooded area just outside town. Under the cover of darkness, they found the ship, smaller than Raven had imagined, its organic curves reminiscent of a massive seed pod. The damage was extensive but concentrated around what Nixus identified as the energy core. "I can repair it," Nixus said, her fingers tracing the scorched hull. "But I need components that don't exist on your world." She turned to Raven, her eyes swirling with complex emotions. "And even if I could fix it, leaving now would only lead the hunters to your world. They must believe I perished in the crash." A twig snapped in the darkness behind them. Raven spun around to see flashlight beams cutting through the trees. The division had somehow tracked them, had probably been watching the ship all along. As voices approached their position, Raven made a split-second decision. "Run," she whispered to Nixus. "I'll distract them. Head north to the old steel mill, I'll find you there." Before Nixus could protest, Raven burst from their hiding spot, deliberately making as much noise as possible as she ran in the opposite direction. Shouts of pursuit followed her, flashlight beams dancing through the trees. She smiled grimly as she ran, knowing that every agent following her was one less searching for Nixus. But as she heard the unmistakable sound of helicopters approaching overhead, Raven realized this game of cat and mouse was about to become much more dangerous. The real question was, who were they really hiding from, the division, or something far worse that was still to come? Breaking protocol. The abandoned steel mill loomed against the pre-dawn sky, its rusted skeleton a testament to forgotten industry. Raven had managed to lose her pursuers in the woods, but her victory felt hollow as she crept through the mill's shadowy interior. Her scrubs were torn, her legs ached, and every sound echoed ominously through the empty structure. "Nixus," she whispered into the darkness. A soft glow emanated from behind a collapsed conveyor belt, and Raven found her alien friend huddled in a makeshift alcove. "The hunters," Nixus said without preamble, her translator's voice tight with fear. "They've entered your solar system. I can feel them." Before Raven could respond, her phone vibrated. A text from Dr. James Porter, the hospital's head of radiology, government agents questioning all staff. "They know about the radiation therapy room. Get out now." Raven showed Nixus the message. "We need help," she admitted. "And I think I know who to ask." An hour later, Dr. Porter's Tesla pulled up outside the mill. The elderly radiologist had been Raven's mentor since her first day at Prairie Grove, and his eyes widened at the sight of Nixus but showed no fear. "Fascinating," he breathed, examining Nixus's translucent skin. "Your cellular structure must be remarkably efficient at energy conversion." "James," Raven interrupted, "we need your expertise. Nixus's ship needs repairs, but more importantly, we need to mask its energy signature." "The components." "Say no more," Dr. Porter pulled out a tablet. "I've been developing experimental radiation shielding for the new oncology wing. With some modifications." He trailed off, already lost in calculations. The next few hours became a blur of activity. Dr. Porter's knowledge of radiation and energy manipulation proved invaluable as they worked to adapt his shielding technology to Nixus's ship. But time was running out. The division had set up checkpoints on every major road, and strange lights had begun appearing in the night sky. Beyond stars. The hunters arrived at midnight. Their ship descended like a massive bird of prey, its dark hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The division's forces scattered in panic as energy pulses swept the area, searching for Lumini signatures. But Nixus's ship, hidden in the steel mill's abandoned underground loading bay, remained undetected. Dr. Porter's modified shielding worked perfectly, bending energy around the vessel like water around a stone. "The repairs are complete," Nixus announced, her 3 eyes glowing with renewed strength. "But launching will alert them. There will be only seconds to achieve escape velocity." Raven looked at the ship, then at her friend. "You've taught me so much about courage, about seeing beyond our differences." Her voice cracked slightly. "Will we ever see you again?" Nixus's skin rippled with patterns of light that Raven had learned to recognize as emotion. "My people have a saying, the universe bends toward those who show kindness. We will meet again." The launch sequence was like nothing Raven had ever imagined. Dr. Porter's shielding failed spectacularly, but purposefully, creating a cascade of energy signatures that confused both the division's instruments and the hunter's sensors. Nixus's ship shot upward, becoming a streak of light that disappeared into the night sky. The hunters gave chase, their massive ship illuminating the countryside as it pursued what they thought was a fleeing Lumini. But they were following a ghost, a carefully crafted echo created by the failing shielding. By the time they realized their mistake, Nixus had slipped away through a different vector entirely. Weeks later, Raven stood in the hospital garden where it had all begun. The division had eventually withdrawn, having found no evidence of alien contact. Dr. Porter's research into energy shielding had earned him a prestigious grant, though he never revealed its true inspiration. Looking up at the stars, Raven touched a small crystal that Nixus had given her before departing. It pulsed weakly with its own inner light, a piece of living starlight, Nixus had called it. A reminder that kindness could bridge even the vast distances between stars. A shooting star streaked across the sky, and for a moment, it seemed to pulse with familiar patterns of light. Raven smiled, knowing that somewhere out there, among the endless stars, her friend was continuing her journey, carrying the story of human kindness to distant worlds. The crystal in her hand grew warm, its light brightening momentarily, and Raven understood the truth that Nixus had shown her: the greatest discoveries often come not from our technology or our science, but from our capacity to reach out to those who are different, to offer help when it's needed most. She had started that night as a nurse simply doing her job. She ended it as a keeper of stardust, a guardian of a secret that made the universe feel both vastly larger and infinitely more connected. And somewhere, she knew, Nixus was telling her own people about the humans who had helped her, not because they had to, but because they chose to. The stars continued their eternal dance overhead, and Raven Mitchell, night nurse turned galactic confidant, returned to her rounds. After all, there were still people who needed help, both under this sky and beyond it.